Hi everyone, Nick Robinson here. Don't miss our latest conversation with Mark Tyke and his inspiring new project, Bridge to Dove. It all started with a grassroots dream. Back in 2021, a local group called Bridge to Dove began rallying community support. Now, with the help of incredible partners and funders, that dream is becoming a reality, bringing critical recovery resources to women who need them the most. The new Dove Recovery House of Bartholomew County can't wait to open their doors and help those in need. Catch the full story this month on The Conversation Community. Welcome to The Conversation. I'm Nick Robinson and I'm here with Kelly Daugherty. Recently, we have been part of a group of people who have hosted a Sing-Along Messiah, a work of great art and artistry, partnering with some of what I think of as some of the great institutions in Columbus. And we have a lot of groups of people working really hard to do good things, whether that's engineering or music or feeding the hungry. And I wanted to invite Kelly Daugherty, the executive director of Love Chapel, to have a conversation with us about what Love Chapel does, what kind of collaboration has to take place to make it possible, what their motivations for doing the work are, so that we can better understand how it works. At the conversation, we want to talk about how faith meets real life, and putting our faith into work through an organization like Love Chapel is about as real as it gets sometimes, helping people with real needs, specific needs that honestly Scripture calls us to address throughout the whole thing pretty much. It's pretty consistent in its witness about our response to people in need. So Kelly, tell us just a little bit about Love Chapel.
Certainly, and before I do that, I want to say the sing-along was absolutely amazing.
It was wonderful.
I listen to all types of music, and I really haven't listened to a whole lot of Philharmonic type music, and it blew me away. So it was great. So.
Yeah, and it was we had to pivot on our location, but it ended up working out, and it met in Asbury United Methodist Church, and I was excited to be in that space. Hopefully, no promises quite yet. We'll do it again, and we'll get to actually do it in what is now called the Lex.
The Lex.
Yeah.
That's correct. Well, thank you for having me today, and certainly I'm passionate about what we do at Love Chapel. And I think you touched on something that is at the core of what we do. Most people don't realize that Love Chapel has been around for 58 years now, and 8 churches came together and said, how can we minister to our community better? Mm-hmm. And that was the guiding principle that established Love Chapel, and it's still our motivation for what we do today.
Yeah. So it came out of churches.
It did. And we're owned by 24 member churches, Asbury being one of them. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we were 25 before North Christian, which is now the Lex, closed. Yeah. But it started at, our ownership is those 24 churches. And so what we do is we try to share God's love to those that are in need. And we do that through our food pantry and through the different food programs we offer. We do that through our financial assistance program, as well as Brighter Days homeless shelter. So
one of the things I really appreciated about Love Chapel is its effort to reach out and be inclusive in the way that it helps people. There are different food pantries for different groups sometimes.
That's correct. And we try very hard to be as inclusive as possible. First of all, the only requirement to come to see us at Love Chapel is that you live in Bartholomew County. Mm-hmm. It's not that you're a resident of Bartholomew County or a documented resident or anything like that. If you have a place that you live in Bartholomew County, you're our neighbor, and we're here for you if you need it.
Love your neighbor as yourself.
Exactly. And so that is one of the overriding principles. And some people say, well, don't you think you get taken advantage of occasionally? And I'm like, probably.
Yeah, probably.
You know what? But when we start making rules, then people that are going to need it aren't going to get served. And so that's why we try to make it as simple as possible to get to our services.
Well, and I think about Scripture and the story of the Good Samaritan. I think that undergirds a lot of your work probably. You know, so someone sees somebody in need, they stop to help. I bet somebody could twist that story and be like, that injured person was taking advantage of the Samaritan. But that's not what we are called to worry about. We are called to love and serve.
And I would encourage anybody that thinks that, come spend a day with us at the food pantry. I had a gentleman on my board, and he hinted that, I think that there's not this many people that need food. And he goes, I think there's a lot of people that are taking advantage of you. And he happened to volunteer to do the Christmas feast giveaway.
Yeah.
And it was the day we set the record with 104 families in a 3-hour period.
Oh gosh.
And he was there. And afterwards I looked at him, I said, what do you think? Did you see anybody that maybe was taking advantage? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's totally changed his opinion, and it would change your opinion if you just come see the folks that we're serving.
Yeah, and so if you are watching this, being part of this conversation, and you live in Columbus, Bartholomew County, or even nearby, and you want to volunteer, I bet you have a place for people to serve.
We do. Not only do we have the pantry, which is open 6 days a week, and it's open Monday through Saturday, every day but Sunday, but we also have mobile outreach pantries. We do a program where we take food out to the schools for the elementary age kids to make sure they have food for the weekends. We have hot meal programs. There is so many different things that a person could volunteer at. I actually was up at the new Grillo's Pickles plant today.
Awesome.
They're part of the King's Hawaiian Company, and they aren't even open. They won't open until September, but they invited us for a tour, and they want to support Love Chapel.
That's cool.
They found out that we do a mobile pantry in Taylorsville, and so starting next month, they're going to have 3 volunteers. They only have 3 employees right now, but they're going to have 3 volunteers at that mobile outreach pantry, and so they're going to be able to do that and hopefully grow that as their staff grows.
Yeah, and that gets me thinking. So, as you say, Love Chapel is owned by 24 churches here in Bartholomew County, but I imagine that those 24 churches are not able to do all of this work between, making sure no one has to go hungry in Bartholomew County, between the hot meals and the food pantries and the mobile pantries, and Brighter Days homeless shelter for people to have a place, and just all the work. So who else are you partnering with? We hear about Grillo's. Who else?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of organizations, and it's really quite interesting when you start talking about where does all that food come from. Many people have heard of Feeding America, and Feeding America started out as a joint project between the National Retail Grocers Association and USDA. And one of the misnomers that people have is that sell-by date is the expiration date, and that is not the case.
Yeah.
That is when the USDA and Feeding America made a guideline, and that's when it's donated to food pantries, and then there's an entire chart of how long it's good after that point in time. And the goal was to reduce food waste and get it out to pantries so that it could be used. Last year, we gave out over 2 million pounds of food.
Wow.
And out of that, probably 60% of it came through Feeding America and the partnership that we have with them and Gleaners. Awesome. So we also, we have a group of 15 that will go out and pick up. We do Starbucks, Thornton's, Panera Bread, the Dollar General stores. I mean, it's just amazing the amount of people that give to us to be able to provide food for the people that come to see us at Love Chapel.
And some of this, a big portion of this, is food that would be waste otherwise.
It is.
But it's not food that is waste, because it's not food that it's unsafe to eat or even unpalatable to eat. It's good, safe food.
Exactly. And a favorite story of mine, and I'll tell it really quickly, and then we'll talk about some of our other partners. But you probably never heard of a company called Bimbo Breads. Bimbo in America doesn't sound very nice, but it's a Spanish word from Mexico, and they actually own Entenmann's. They own Brownstone Bakery, Sara Lee. They are the world's largest bread maker.
Wow.
They happen to have a distribution site right across the street from Love Chapel. And so every day at 4:30, this 52-foot truck pulls in and unloads bread. And then these smaller trucks take it out to the grocery stores throughout Southern Indiana and stock the shelves. And they get back, sometimes it's as late as 3 in the morning. And what they do is whatever didn't go on the shelves at the grocery store, they push it over to the Love Chapel corner, and we have a key to their warehouse. And every morning, that's how our volunteers start their day, is bringing the bread across the street to distribute at the food pantry. So it's just an example of how our community comes together to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that the role that private companies play in this as well, which may or may not be an expression of faith of the people who own it, but it's certainly an expression of generosity and care and love of neighbors towards people. Like to give you a key, like that's a powerful metaphor, but also just reality.
It is. And it was so funny because Kroger was having a grand reopening. They had done some remodeling, and I went to it, and they had a table for Bimbo Breads. And so I walked up and I said, I wanted to introduce myself to you and say thank you. My name's Kelly with Love. Oh, Kelly. And she was from Indianapolis. She knew of us, but she knew of the arrangement and just was so great. And actually she said, I'm going to start getting you some Sara Lee bread because that's our best stuff. And sure enough, she came through because now we're getting Sara Lee bread as well. So.
That's so awesome.
But yeah, and it's true. It's not just a faith-based group that is doing this. We have volunteers from all walks of life, and trust me, it takes a lot of volunteers to do what we do.
Well, and that person who runs, got you the Sara Lee bread, who works in Indianapolis, may or may not come from a faith background.
I have no
It
idea.
might be an expression of her faith, but it might not.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing nonetheless.
And people want to make a difference, and,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things I'm most proud of with the United States right now. And I know we look at all the negatives and all the bad things, but there are a lot of people out there that are trying to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important. But no, we have different organizations, not only just food product, but I'll use Cleveland Cliffs as an example. They basically they have a competition between all the Cliffs factories, which are all across the United States, and they take it seriously. And in March, they do this every March. They collected 41,000 pounds of food for Love Chapel, and then got bragging rights as the very best Cleveland Cliffs plant. And so then they got 10,000 to give to Love Chapel as well. Nothing faith-based about that, but it's people that really care about feeding their neighbors and making a difference. And we just had the big truck from the Latter-day Saints, and it came all the way from their storehouse in Salt Lake City, and it had 40,000, and it was a 52-foot trailer with 14 pallets of food on it. And it's our food is a blessing from all kinds of different
So you get 40,000 pounds of food. How long does it take to give away 40,000 pounds of food?
I always hate to tell that, because they ask that very question, and I'm like, well, every day that we're open, we give out between 8,000 and 9,000 pounds of food. So roughly, if everything, I mean, some of it lasts a lot longer than that because there's other things in the basket that the people get, but roughly 4 to 5 days worth of food.
Well, I think that's, it's slightly discouraging because that's food going really fast, but it also just speaks to the level of need and how there is a need for the churches and the organizations and the individuals of our community, and I would bet every community, to be active in this kind of work. I bet if someone was really smart, they could trace from Love Chapel's work to increase test scores in our elementary schools.
Absolutely.
Because it's shown that if you have an empty stomach, you do worse on tests. And I don't want to get too much into education policy around testing, but even learning other things.
Right.
Tests happen immeasurable, but being hungry makes it really hard to do well in school. And not knowing where your food is coming from makes it really hard to treat your fellow students well sometimes.
And that's why we were approached 6 years ago about the school care packages that we go home with the kids every Friday. And they were like, these kids come back on Monday, they've got a bellyache, they're not ready to work because they're starving to death. And so I came up with a group of individuals that were retired Cummins executives. Said, if you can get a match for us, we'll match 15,000, and that's how we funded the very first year. Was 15,000 from a match, and then 15,000 from our foundation, and so that got us through that first year, and then we've been able to keep that program running now for 6 years, and it does benefit the kids.
Absolutely, and their families too, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So we just tried to raise some money for Love Chapel as part of our Sing Along Messiah. Do you have a sense of how well we did this year?
I don't have the exact number, but it's somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 that the concert raised for Love Chapel, which is immeasurable. It was a wonderful event, especially for the first year of ever doing it, and then the challenges of having to change location and that kind of thing there. So it was a blessing, and it will go to make a big difference in our community.
Well, I would love to do the event next year. No promises, but I would love to double the amount that we raise, and for the event to get a reputation, and I think Love Chapel is well known in our community, but I would like it to even be more well known.
Right, and I think that we have a desire to try and go forward with it as well. So,
well, often I feel like I know Love Chapel pretty well, but you've shared stories with me today that I didn't know, I had never heard, and you're full of those stories. You could sit here for another hour and tell us stories we haven't heard.
We don't have time for this. If you want me to
run
tell.
out of tape.
I will tell you one story though, and you volunteered in our financial assistance office to help folks that needed help with rent or utilities, and I was back during the pandemic, and I had a young lady that came in, and she needed $300, and this poor young lady, she had been on her own since she was 15. She was 21, and her roommates lost their jobs because of the pandemic, and so she took on a second job. She had sold everything she owned. I mean, she did everything she possibly could do to get her rent paid, and she was $300 short, and we were able to help her, and that was great. So I said, well, I've got to call your landlord, let him know we're going to make the pledge and fill out this paperwork. Hang on just a second. And she just started talking, and she goes, I didn't know Love Chapel did a food pantry. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we're most known for. She goes, well, I went across the street and I thought I was registering to be seen for financial assistance. And they took my information and all of a sudden they pushed this cart of food out to me. And I said, well, did you need it? And she started tearing up and she's like, I've been so worried about getting my bills paid. She goes, I haven't eaten in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And she goes, I needed it so bad. So that gives you an example of the type of people that we serve.
And Love Chapel is really important to me for a few reasons. One, I think a lot of people would not believe that people in our community, pandemic or no pandemic, are in that position. And it happens fairly regularly. People who are both trying really hard to get out of to do things right, and some who are not. And the other thing is, I'm so thankful for Love Chapel because it's a place that is available for that. For me, Nick Robinson, a pastor at a church, part of the conversation, for me to know that story and be available to meet those needs is impossible. Like I would, like my heart says I would love to do that, but I absolutely cannot. And so to have a partner like Love Chapel be able to do that is everything.
And it is, and we're open. I get referrals from the United Way, which is not a faith-based organ. We will help anybody if we possibly can. Right now, one of the things that's occupying my time is, you may have heard that the Villas was closing. And so I was able to talk our foundation into doing a $20,000 grant to be able to help with moving costs and deposits for these folks that are trying to find places. So we are moving folks and getting teams from different churches to do that, and it's been a blessing for our community. And that's not a faith-based thing. That's something that we as a community felt like it was important to do.
And I think in serving our neighbor, we can meet God even if we're not looking for God. I think there's scripture that attests to that, and I think it's a gift to serve and as well as to be the beneficiaries if you need that level of help. So we might have people watching today, Kelly, that want to be involved. They've heard your stories, they're inspired, they hear the need, they want to help. How do you help?
Yeah, it's really easy. I mean, if you go to our website, which is at columbuslovechapel.com, we've got a section you can say get help or give help. And so if you're in need of help, you want to know where the hot meal is tonight, or how to access the pantry or financial assistance or the shelter, information is there and you can do that. If you want to give help, whether it be financial or volunteering, there's a site there and you just click on the give help and it'll direct you to where you need to go to do that. So, awesome. And if you're not real good on the internet, you can always call us at 812-372-9421. So.
Nice. And so you need volunteers?
Always.
You need money?
Always.
You need people praying for you?
Every day.
You need...
Probably that one more than anything.
Okay. So there's at least 3 ways to get involved. I want to thank you, Kelly, for coming out and talking to us. Is there anything that you want to say before we sign off?
No, my pleasure to be here, and thank you for your help and the support that you give Love Chapel.
Absolutely. So that's our conversation for today. We're going to play after this the Sing-Along Messiah. So if you weren't able to be there in person, you can enjoy it and maybe be inspired to join us next time. Thank you for joining us at the conversation. I'm Nick Robinson. I'll talk to you next time.